Arcane Odyssey is a long road of endless mistakes committed by naive players. Despite the video game's evident advice and subtle teachings, players decisively skip that part and rush straight into a boss twice the level with nothing but a rusty cutlass. And on top of that, a complex builds function with limited forgiveness on how hideously awful a player can make their build become. Or what about a hardcore and unforgiving PC-focused combat so stressful that it forces your heart to rattle like a cage of stressed cockatiels? Oh, why is this game so ridiculously hard for me? I thought skipping all of the side quests and focusing entirely on the story would make this playthrough a pleasant experience. Oh yeah, nah. I present to you one of the very many guides on how to play Arcane Odyssey just the way that His Holiness intended. See, one of the major mistakes that new players make is not optimizing their settings. When a player does not optimize their settings, it causes them to get used to playing the game a certain way that ruins them later in the game. You dodge with double tap throughout the main story, you're gonna dodge with double tap at the end game. Dodging with double tap is bad. Not optimizing your settings also forces you to hear the cancerous Twitter feed that is the global messages function. You can access the settings tab by clicking on the 9 little squares on the bottom left of your screen. Yeah, the GUI may change the full release update, but I assume a intelligent and beautiful woman such as yourself has the mental capacity to press a button, so I shall refuse to dawdle on it. You will then go to the settings tab, and here is where you get to optimize your gameplay. Now, normally, I, as an Arcane Odyssey professional, gifted first place at the regional Arcane Odyssey Know-It-All tournament, would disable things such as attack names and chat, which means your character will not say their attack spells via chat when attacking. Disabling this function is important because if you do not, the text bubble will just block part of your screen during combat. But if you like to roleplay, you can just keep the function on. Yeah, until it drives you insane. But it is detrimental that everyone must switch their dodging method to shift only. The preset way to dodge is to double tap a movement input, which is actually very bad because you will accidentally dodge when you're a place when you specifically do not want to dodge, like in the dark sea or in the sky. Personally, I remember it took me hours to get out of the habit of double pressing a key to dodge, and I recommend that you should get used to shift keying during your first gameplay. Render distance affects the distance in which ships and structures, such as diving points and dark sea islands spawn. So if you have a powerful device, I recommend you set it to max so that way you can commit piracy easier. But let's not explode your device. After all, Arcane Odyssey is a high-performance game. Global message notifications must be turned off at all times. Otherwise, your inbox is going to be a live feed of Arcane Odyssey players arguing over which NPCs can shake their ass better. Mouse icons changing is imperative for quality gameplay because it's actually easier to aim with the pointer icon than to aim with the target icon. Screen shake is also nasty. Having your screen shake during battle throws off your knowledge of the enemy's locations, which makes battles harder. Yeah, unless you are a masochist who actually takes pleasure in a difficult gaming experience, I advise you keep this button off. And then there's item display. If you are playing on laptop, you should change the setting to text. That way, your device won't explode when you open your inventory. And who knows, you may also learn how to read this way. I also recommend sorting out your inventory by pressing the sort button. Sorting your inventory by highest level can help you save time rummaging through your inventory. You can find this button in your inventory. You press tab. Arcane Odyssey has multiple unique builds that play a pivotal role in both combat and roleplay. Every time you level up, you receive 2 skill points in which you can invest into either Vitality for magical spirit weapons, Magic for the magic that you choose at the start of the game, Strength for the numerous martial arts that you can learn across the war seas, and weapons that you can find in chests on islands. You can mix and match 2 of these skills to achieve hybrid builds such as warlocks or conjurers. And if you mix 3 of these base stats, you're a savant! Now personally, I would recommend against playing as a hybrid build on your very first gameplay. And if you are looking to play as a hybrid, you should research the Arcane Odyssey wiki on good skill investments. Because I'm going to tell you this, once your points are invested, they cannot be reset. And a piece of advice, do not ever trust Arcane Odyssey YouTube videos. The ones that talk about builds. The most popular YouTube topic in Arcane Odyssey is, quote, the meta build, which is slang for the best build. But the problem about best builds is that they change drastically with every update. Yes, there have been cases of naive players getting fooled into playing as an outdated meta from a YouTube video from 3 years ago. Do not be that player. Do not trust Arcane Odyssey meta videos. Even mine! If you messed up your build by changing your mind on what you want to be mid-game, you need to start the entire game from scratch. Or make a new file. When you reach level 10, you're going to unlock a button in the skills page that lets you reset your skill. And, of course, I would advise you to never press this button ever until you are the maximum reachable level and know exactly what kind of build you want to reset your character to. See, the button can only be used once, and you should save it for when you find a way to upgrade your existing build. And a warning for the very few of you, there are some rare cases where newer players get the Prometheus Acrimony early on, which is the rarest and most sought after item in the game, which lets you make a potion to reset your player's skills. Players are going to try to trade items with you in order to get this reagent, and I'm going to tell you this now so you do not regret it later. They are trying to scam you. The Prometheus Acrimony is one of the rarest items in the game, and it is recommended that you trade it for equally rare items, such as sunken items. This might be a controversial hot take, but some builds are actually easier to progress the main story with than others. See, builds such as Vitality and Weapons are item dependent and have fixed skills. If you want to manage these skills, you have to pay a visit to a blacksmith, disarm unwanted weapons for the skills, and rearrange the weapon skills in your inventory, which is a lengthy and frustrating process. Strength is also a difficult build to progress the game with, because most of the good ranged abilities are unlocked later in the game. As well as, of course, Air Step, needing you to have 180 points in strength to unlock. It is good for PvP because of its grabs and AoE, but for completing the main story, it's a nightmare. And on top of that, players need mastery over the fighting style, which sounds good on paper, but it's absolutely abysmal in play. See, once you learn a fighting style that isn't the basic fighting style, you have to defeat NPCs in order to unlock later techniques, and it takes a long time. Oh, have I ever told you about the common trap the players fall for later in the main story? See, when you reach level 93 and you're supposed to head to Ravenna, you unlock the Thermal Fist fighting style there out of curiosity. Then you get stuck into the main story and is forced to defeat the Chapter 4 bosses with only the Thermal Fist crashed ability. Is just not relevant. For this playthrough, I am going to play as a mage, and I recommend that you should too, because mages do not depend on items nor mastery. You are free to manipulate your magic whenever you want. Magic is also ranged, making it easier against bosses and NPCs, and you unlock the essential spells earlier than the other classes, which can make you PvP ready much faster. As well as, of course, learning magic leaps early into the game, which is a massive help for traversing the war seas and climbing the stepstones. Magic power also scales with the amount of skill points you put into magic. This also applies to all the other base stats, but I assume, I speculate, I guess and think, which is a normal thing I can do, and I can make mistakes in my research. Because a mage has all their points placed into magic, they would have magic 2 times as big as a conjurer, who only placed half of their points into magic. So, attacks from pure builds, such as warriors and mages, are more powerful, at the downside that they are only limited to fighting with one combat style. Powerful, as in size. Now, when it comes to playing mage, the biggest question that's ever brought up in Arcane Odyssey is, what's the best magic? Now, that actually depends on the build you want to play as. Magics have certain stats reflecting the personality of the element. Metal is heavy and sluggish, and light is fast and small, and fire This sets people on fire. There's never an incorrect choice with magic. Of course, there are some cases where metal mages get irritated from their sluggish casting speed. Then again, it's all reflected on the element's personality. But if you play as mage, you would want a first magic that doesn't rely on other magics to be effective. For example, sand is voted as the worst stand-alone magic because it's horrible to use by itself, while metal is voted to be the best standalone magic due to it being effective to use by itself. Yo, but it's really freaking slow, I tell you what. Once a mage completes the first C, they, as a mage, will receive a second magic. This happens later in the game, but it's detrimental to choose a magic that synergizes well with your first magic. For example, ice and lightning works well with water, and magma works well with ash and fire and explosion. Crystal magic works well with metal, or something, I guess. Accidentally picking poison as your first magic and wind as your second magic? Yeah, I'm afraid you have ruined your build and you need to start the game over from scratch. For advice for good synergies, please consult the AO Wikipedia. Not YouTubers! For my recommendations for beginner-friendly magic would be Fire and Magma for a Pyromancer roleplay, Lightning and Water for a Storm Druid roleplay, and of course, Ice and Snow for an Ice Cream Man roleplay.
Hey, that's me.
And then there's the Third Magician, which is very big and is good if you cannot aim. Turd magic also does not fully rely on other magic, so it's an excellent first choice. For this run, I'm going to play as a fire mage, who is then going to choose magma magic upon his awakening. Fire is well balanced and deals incredible damage, with the damage being the sole trait of fire. Top that off with the increased damage against melting via magma magic, and we have ourselves a build! The only downside of fire magic is that it can be countered with a single gust of wind. So magma magic comes in to mitigate some of the negative effects, and I'll just avoid fighting underwater at all costs. Fire is not a professional guaranteed magic, and it is not favored by any pro PvPers, but remember that this is a beginner's guide, and we're going to focus primarily on PvE. Also, I love arson! Arcane Odyssey loves to force you into boss fights that you are not prepared for, even though they clearly prepare you with a level requirement for story missions. You always need to make sure that your level greatly surpasses the level of the boss that you are currently fighting. And one way I like to practice for the bosses is completing island exploration tasks. Island exploration tasks are tasks set for a certain island. Doing these tasks always awards you with surplus items and experience points. Thanks to this, I am able to acquire items and level up before even stepping foot into Red Wake, and thanks to the early levels and extra grambities I got from the island exploration tasks, I am able to buy a sailboat faster, which saves me a lot of early game time rowing around the Jaws. And you should get into a good habit for completing these tasks, as completion of all island tasks in the sea awards you the Sea Explorer title. I am now level 10, with 400 grambities in the bank. I have opened every chest. I have done every quest. If you cannot afford the boat, sell your weapons and gear. I would also recommend buying a paintbrush and a repair hammer. Now you are going to face your very first boss. Arcane Odyssey bosses are actually very easy when you're playing as a mage, because all you have to do is maintain a good distance from the boss. That way they won't be able to get you with their close attacks. If a boss would use a projectile against you, remember to use shift to dodge. Now you have completed your first chapter. Arcane Odyssey's story is constructed so that in every chapter there's an island with a boss at the end, with a major boss, of course, being present in every sea. For example, the player goes to an island. There's a problem with the island. Potential boss. But before the player goes on Sherlock Holmes and tries to defeat the boss as fast as possible, the player should do every side quest, collect every chest, and explore every secret. Then annihilate the boss with their increased power. See, many players forget to do their exploration tasks, and in turn, they receive a bad time from the surprise boss that came out of nowhere because they mindlessly scrolled through the main story. Now, I'm not going to spoil the story despite the obvious spoilers in the background footage, so pee pee poo poo booger fart. Boats are going to be your prime method of transport, and it's going to represent your very heart and soul. It is absolutely detrimental that you buy the right boats and obtain the right crew. When you reach level 20, you're going to be able to hire deckhands, workers for hire, who not only give your boat unique skills, but also certain buffs, such as extra ram damage and additional speed. Yeah, I'm going to want you not to hire these deckhands until I give you an overview on them. Deckhands are a full-on investment. You give them your time, items, and money for them to get better at their skills, and they help you by making your boat slightly faster. You cannot customize the deckhands' looks, nor the perks that they offer, unless of course you fire them and hire a deckhand you actually wanted. To maximize quality of life, especially in the later seas where the distances between islands expand greatly, I would advise you to hire a crew that consists entirely of speedy deckhands. A boat with a full crew of max level speedy deckhands adds somewhere over 30 speeds onto your boat, which is equivalent to slapping a second high level sail onto your ship. Very good for saving time. Oh, and they need to be beautiful people, so no boxing gloves, no mid-hair hairstyles, and no goofy facial expressions, and no illegals allowed on my boat. They're very stinky, the illegals. They stink up my boat with their upbeat tunes from Mexico and the United Nations. They will laugh at me for hiring the illegals. The illegals don't like me. You may mistake wind resistance for speed, and you do not want a wind resistance deckhand, because they will actually become completely obsolete once you unlock the brig boat, which can be modified with modifications to have 100% wind resistance. Deckhands will level up with every ship that you sink, and upon reaching a certain level, they can be assigned for a certain job. Now, some of these jobs are actually very useless, while other jobs are detrimental for ship convenience. Every player boat needs both a shipwright and a navigator. The other two slots, for the brig boat, are entirely up to you. Just don't hire the enchanter. The enchanter is just a low-tier shipwright. And another piece of advice, do not buy the catch, no matter what anyone tells you. Alright, the caravel can be equally good as a catch. Once you unlock the caravel, save up money for the brig immediately and buy the catch afterwards. The catch may be faster and have more slots for a crew, but it's horrible at combat and it makes it just harder for you to farm steel chests. Shipwrights sell modifications for your ship, which you're able to buy at level 30. And if you have extra dough, you can enchant these mods at an enchanter NPC for extra stats. For example, enchanting a sailcloth with swiftness gives it extra speed. When you reach level 50, you can obtain rams from bronze sealed chests, with rugged rams dropping at level 50 and iron rams dropping at level 80. They are a great help with committing piracy. When a player reaches level 20, they are able to buy their first suit of armor. These items only give you defense, which is a stat buff which increases your health. Armor grants you a variety of buffs, such as added damage, added attack size, and added attack speed. But non-defense stats are abysmal during the pre-level 100 part of the game. Armor buffs increase as the armor item levels up, and players can level them up via a blacksmith. But I advise that you do not level armor up via blacksmith, and instead you should obtain higher level items for free by opening chests both underwater and above water. Later in game is the time when you should try and focus on maximizing your build. A good late game build should focus on both defense and a certain other stat that synergizes well with your fighting style. And once you reach the maximum level at the end game, a good build focuses on 3 armor buffs, which is mainly attack, defense, and either attack size or attack speed, depending on your fighting style. But that might not be relevant during the full release update, so take this with a grain of salt. What if I told you that you didn't just have to complete the exploration tags to obtain experience? What if I told you that experience and grammaries can just be found by maximizing shareholder profits? We need to maximize our shareholder profit. We need to lay people off. We need more layoffs. We need more ghost application. We are hiring. We need to maximize shareholder profits. Our #1 goal in the office. Experience and grammaries can also be found in the water. One of the most effective methods of acquiring good items for both you and your boat is to open sealed chests. Sealed chests are like normal chests, but heavier. And these very heavy chests require a shipwright to open. Players usually stumble across steel chests while doing treasure charts, which the game teaches you how to do. Because I'm not going to rant about treasure charts for 5 minutes. Go watch another video, please. Of course, another way to get easy sealed chests is to do underwater exploration. Now, there are two types of underwater exploration sites. There are diving points, which can be found by locating a light blue bubbly shape in the ocean. And then there are, of course, underwater structures, which are late game due to their depth and difficulty. And then there's, of course, the abyss biome, but we do not talk about the abyss biome because it's way too hard. When you do a diving point, you want to make sure that it is not deeper than 100 meters. Drowning is the #1 killer of new players because they cannot calculate how fast their stamina will drain while swimming. Now, if I would give some advice on diving points, if you can't do it, don't do it. A safer alternative to diving would be anti-piracy. Or piracy, if you are opportunistic enough. Ships will spawn around the player if they are near water, and if a player has a crew and enough cannons, they can sink these ships and attack the crew to steal their chests. Merchant and Navy ships will give you notoriety, which will cause the player to be constantly attacked by the Grand Navy. Positive Renown players are not able to plunder these ships, however. Except plundering syndicate and pirate ships, they will not give your player notoriety. It is very clever to go for the low-level boats, such as plain or reinforced boats, and it is recommended that your boat is much stronger than the NPC's boat. Yeah, both of these tasks are difficult things to do, and the game does not expect you to do it until you're over level 50. When a player reaches level 50, PvP is enabled. Which actually isn't as big of a deal as you would think it is. Sure, players will destroy you, but most players are actually way nicer than you think they are. In Arcane Odyssey, killing low levels is actually considered taboo against the community, and most players will actively punish low-level hunters by hunting them themselves. But when you reach level 50, bounty is also enabled, which means that you're able to open illegal chests. Illegal chests are the ultimate salvation for low-level players because illegal chest contents are similar to gold chests contents, meaning you can get much better gear much faster without having to do as much exploration. The only downside to this is that you need a bounty to open illegal chests. In order to get a bounty, a player has to visit Silverhold and talk to the receptionist. A bounty does not mean that everyone's going to attack you, it just means that everyone can attack you. Remember, Arcane Odyssey players can be much kinder than you expect them to be. And the occasional unkind players will not bounty hunt you as long as your bounty is 3 digits. NPCs though, they aren't kind. But it's okay, you can just kill them. When I reach level 50, I usually also like to buy a full suit of iron armor and enchant it at an enchanter, because it will help me with some of the combat quests. But players can also just find iron armor in illegal chests. It's not that difficult. And while I'm on the topic of the level 50 part of the story, do not forget to go to the secret area in the northern part of Skycliff Island. And you should also collect every chest at the Myriad. It is detrimental to complete all of the exploration tasks in the sky, so that way you don't actually have to do them when you're trying to 100% the game. Once you defeat the boss that resides in the Deckhands ruins, you will be given a choice between sparing him or killing him. And this actually plays a huge role in how your player is going to behave in the future. I believe that your choice of sparing or killing the boss is going to affect the potential ending. So that's one of the major things about this choice, but the other major things about choosing to be merciful or ruthless is your spirit color changing. Now this only applies to Oracle players and Oracle hybrid players, so I'll tell you about Oracle colors beforehand so you can get the perfect color for your Oracle file. A merciful Oracle with positive Renown has a light blue color, indicating that they are pure. A merciful Oracle with negative Renown has a darker blue color, indicating that they are a pathological liar and must be avoided at all costs. A ruthless Oracle with positive Renown has a lighter purple color, indicating that they are a logical and straightforward thinking individual. And a ruthless Oracle with negative Renown has a darker purple color, indicating that they are borderline satanic. Spirit weapon imbuement for paladins will also change. A paladin is an Oracle and a mage hybrid. A merciful paladin will receive yellow spirit energy, which makes a light paladin a good choice for merciful paladins, aka the Jesus build. A ruthless paladin receives crimson spirit energy, making a shadow slash whatever color looks good alongside crimson a good choice for ruthless paladins. The Satan build. Personally, I chose to kill the boss because I have too many merciful files. That is all for the mercy function. You! Soldier boy, I wing it, yo. Watch me crank it, watch me roll. Watch me crack that soldier boy. The Superman is a ho awange, you. Despite being a well-written game, Arcane Odyssey has a serious problem about not warning you for potential storyline bosses. There will be parts in the main story where you'll be stuck on an island, stuck to fight a boss, and you will die on that boss a lot because you weren't prepared enough because the game didn't warn you about the boss. But I'll give you a professional's insight into when these parts happen so you can prepare well before blindly charging at the final boss with a rusty great axe. At chapter 4 part 9 in the story, you are required to head to Tiberia, the poor part of Ravenna. The island that you are currently mindlessly helping in the chapter 4 part of the story. Yeah, I'm going to advise you not to go to Tiberia. Yeah, until you have successfully obtained your dodge reflex. Yeah, if you do choose to go to Tiberia, you're going to get stuck on the island until part of the story is completed. A dodge reflex is an ability that the player learns late game at around level 120 by completing the quest given by Rill Hendrix at White Summit, the island near the Stepstones. The dodge reflex lets the player dodge mid-air, which is very vital for dodging boss projectiles. On top of that, a player should probably be receiving titanium/pirate lord armor pieces from chests now that they are around level 100 at this point. These armor sets are really great for the Bronze Sea endgame because they can give you a ton of health, which is very, very good for the endgame. In my strategy, I usually like to obtain enough defense to have at least 2,000 player health, because that will help me greatly in the future storyline, as well as in the Dark Sea. When Chapter 5 is completed and the Bronze Sea storyline is fully done, you'll be ordered to advance to the Nimbus Sea. Yeah, I'm going to want you not to do that. The Nimbus Sea is very vast and sparse, with a lot of hostile, powerful, and very large ships sailing about. If you want to make it to Samaria safely, you're going to need to get the brig boat beforehand. Or the ketch. The ketch also works fine. But it has to be a big and fast boat. But I would recommend the brig boat. The brig boat is the highest level boat you can buy in the full release update. And it is the most expensive boat as well, costing you 20,000 gramadies. Now, remember what I told you about illegal chests? Any items that you do not need, you sell. Reagans, high-level oracle items, high-level berserker items, weapons. I don't need these items because I'm a mage. You would have probably acquired your awakening by now, which can greatly help you with pirating boats. Any gems and sale materials you collect from chests should be sold ASAP.
But Jimmy, I need to use the gems to train my deckhands and my jewel crafting skill.
Bring first! Gems! Endgame! But it is of course common sense to obtain cargo, place it on your ship, and travel up and down the trade route connecting Redway to Ravenna. But cargo is an incredibly nasty process that requires a lot of mindless repetition, with your stress piling on more and more the more boxes that you place on your catch. It was the old-fashioned meta for obtaining money, but now that the merchant NPCs have more money in their banks, you can just make a fortune by just selling your unwanted items. The brig lets you navigate the Nimbus Sea safely and hastily, as well as the Dark Sea, which the game introduces to you once you reach level 120.
And now you know.